And hello once again, it's another edition of the Storytellers, and I know it's a full screen right here, so you say I have a guest, and I'm going to skip the part where I tell you about this, to the part where I tell you that this is about the guys behind the stories, the ones who determine what makes top pages and the headlines and what have you. My name is Babatunde Femi Okunla. This is a series that majorly focuses on mentorship and journalism trade. What's in it, what's not, what are the assumptions made? You get the picture, right? Well, today I've got a guest. My guest is Sharon Baring'a. Yeah, I pronounced that right, I know. And she's also from Kenya. My guest has got 6 years in journalism, but one thing I can see about her is she's got speed. And sometimes that's the most important thing. But forget about the speed. Let's talk about how she got where she's got. She's a Mandela Washington Fellow. She's an ICFJ Fellow. She focuses on education and on children. Sharon, it's good to have you. I feel so proud of myself. I pronounced your name right.
Oh, you're welcome.
I deserve some accolade. All right, Sharon, thank you so much for having me. Or for being with me and for giving me your time.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Sharon, 6 years in journalism. One thing I noticed reading your profile and your CV is the fact that you streamlined immediately. You knew what you wanted to do. And I'm wondering perhaps if that's because you just have a journalism background, you knew what you wanted, and then you just went for it. 6 years in journalism, you focused on children and education. Why?
Even before I joined journalism, when I was still in school and back in my church, we used to go as a group to schools where we would mentor children, talk to them, play with them. And I felt sort of like it's my calling. And so when I got this opportunity to join the newsroom, I was like, why not use this platform to speak for these children? Because at times I think the young nation is often forgotten in some of the things or stuff that happens in our countries. And so I decided that I'm going to be that voice for these children in my country. And aside from that, I also, once I'm married, I'm not married. So once I'm married, I really pray that my husband has the same dream or vision, and I also plan that apart from my biological kids, I'll also get to adopt some children and just provide a home for someone who did not have that opportunity to have a home.
You do love children, and it is a calling. It is a calling. Now, I asked a question because, I'm just going to start off with you. Every time I have journalists sit down, I think about what makes them tick. And you chose education. You chose children. And of course it has to do with picking a side at the end of the day. But again, at some point, journalists do have bills to pay. They think about the money. And someone's probably listening right now is like, she chose children. There's no money there. She chose education in Africa. There's no money there. So when you take a look at it, and yet you've traveled to some incredible places, you've seen a lot of incredible things. Of course, you're comfortable. So I'm asking you this question again about picking up a side. What for you? Did you stop to think initially when getting into all of this journalism? How comfortable will I be? Is this just passion? Did the money matter? And I need you to answer that sincerely.
Of course, money matters, and it gets to a point that you feel discouraged and you start, doubting whether you made the right decision. But after you see the impact your stories have brought into other people's lives, then you think, I think I'm in the right place. So what else can I do? In fact, today I was talking to one of my friends, and one of the questions I was asking her is, do you invest? Because it's something that even if you're a lawyer, you have to think big, think of other avenues of creating wealth.
Wow.
Because I have a passion for children. I at times go to children homes, to distribute books, food stuff. Am I going to depend only on my salary to reach out to these children who are in need? You have to think out of the box. Surely there are other ways that you can do apart from your profession that can help add that coin or that shilling into your account and use it for the good of the society.
So what you're saying is, despite the fact that you're into journalism, it's important that you think about finance as well, and do the job to the best of your abilities, but also to be responsible with money. You've also got to invest and do some other things. Now I want to ask you about, you just spoke about impact. Let's talk about being a journalist covering children and education in your part of the world. That's Kenya.
Yeah.
What's that like?
It's quite a challenge because most of our newsrooms are politically oriented. So maybe I have a story that is going to focus on children. I go to my editor and my editor thinks otherwise. I'll rather send a camera to cover a political rally. So these are just some of the challenges that we journalists who are in this field of children face from day to day. But again, we have a way of working around it because at the end of the day, you see our stories on air.
Yeah.
So you just have to be smart about it.
All right, just have to be smart about it. These are some of the challenges because again, media houses do have to pay their own bills as well. All right. Now I want to talk to you about the developmental story in Africa. You've covered a couple of stories already. Looking back and maybe the zillions of stories you had to cover. Let's talk about that one impactful story that you've produced. And what made it what it was. Did it start off being that much of a powerful story? Because how everybody says that story is so huge. You've been working on it for the past 5 years and last 10 years. But then again, the idea could just have been sparked up by something that appeared to be so insignificant. I'm talking about how you pick up your story ideas as a journalist.
As a journalist, I have different sources. There are people who come to me and tell me, Sharon, I have this story idea. There are people who call me. There are people who contact me through my social media pages.
Trust.
Yeah.
Wow.
So people contact you through your social media pages or through other journalists who they contact you through other journalists who have your contact. Like, please try reach out to Sharon. I have this idea, this story that I think she can bring it, to air. And so we have different avenues of gathering, getting sources to stories in my country.
All right. So what one story, one impactful story that you have worked on, can you briefly tell us about the story and, what impact the story seemed to have?
Wow. In my country, we have a tribe called the Makonde. The Makonde came to Kenya in the 1920s to work on the sisal farms along the coastal region. So these people have been living in Kenya since the 1920s up until now. They're still in Kenya. So they don't have any contacts with Mozambique, where they came from. And it was quite saddening that for all this time, these people were not recognized as Kenyans. So they were not being issued with identification cards. So they could not go to college, they could not have a bank account, they could not be employed. Basically, it was modern day slavery. So 2013, when I was fairly new in the newsroom, I bumped into this story idea. I traveled to the coastal region of Kenya and I did the story. I documented their suffering, their daily lives. And 2015, I'm happy to say that my president, Uhuru Kenyatta, recognized this group of people as the 43rd tribe of Kenya. They're now being registered. They are now being issued with identification cards. And now they're Kenyans.
That is huge. Like, really, really. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I'm very sure that when you started that story, you did not exactly think it was going to blow out to be such a big story. I want to ask you a question I always ask every journalist seated on this couch. That's about mediums. And I want to ask it in a different way. We're in the era of social media. And while some people say social media, they tend to look at the pros, some other people look at the cons. What do you think about the use of social media in the African story when it comes to development? How helpful, or would you think otherwise, has it been?
For me, I think social media is an avenue that can be explored for the good. You can get your stories, you can share your stories through the social media. And at the same time, as a journalist, you also have to be careful with what is put out on the social media.
Fake news.
Exactly. Fake news. You might find yourself running with a story that it's not real. And so this, spoils your image, your credibility goes, downhill. So you have to be careful with things that you see on social media. Not everything you see is true. Yeah. But again, you can get your sources. You can do your interviews through social media. It has made the world, to become like a village. It's so easy to reach out to someone in Nigeria, someone in Namibia, Chad.
Wow.
Social media has made it so easy. So it's one thing that we can really explore, and we use it to tell our stories.
Well, use it to tell our stories. Now, I want you to look into that camera and talk to someone who's young as well as someone who's watching right now. And briefly, if someone picked up the phone and said, "Hey, Sharon, I just need this advice. I want to break into this, and I need a word from you." Yeah, preach, sister.
Thank you. So this is my time. I'm Pastor Sharon. I'm not a pastor. So for any young person out there, you have your big dreams that you want to pursue. One thing that I can tell you is that don't listen to negative voices or energies that are trying to bring you down or discourage you. Reach out for the stars, reach out for your dreams, work hard at it, and you will make it.
Reach out, forget the naysayers, work hard at it, reach for it, work hard at it. Okay, and she capped it all with the work. All right, so it's not just, you reaching out for it. You got to put your back into it as well and work. All right, yeah, that's the size of the show today. Thank you, Sharon, for being my guest on this show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. My name is Babatunde Femi Okunla, and thank you for being a part of the show. All right, because there'd be no show without you as well. Who we're bringing next on the Storyteller series? Well, like I say, you'd have to tune in, watch to find out. Bye.